That's fine. That's fine. Good turnout.
Yeah.
Really good turnout.
Particularly for
Right? Everything going on?
Yeah, everything going on.
Well, I was telling them I was at a conference in Nashville, and there's just, people are just really, really like yearning to have things like this where we can still have safety measures in place, but we can be around people.
Yep. Yeah, this is cool. This will be fun.
I'm gonna sit down and look at my slides.
Do go for it. Yep. You have time.
I'm gonna do my best to not drink the water.
Yes, right.
It just takes me a minute to like only recognize people from. It's like, yes, I know that. How are you? How you been?
Good. We're really happy to have our communities represented.
No, we're really excited. I know there's a couple of us from Whitehall here today, so we're really excited to be part of this. You know us, we're always happy to share the gospel of Whitehall. So.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good story to tell.
It was good seeing you.
Yeah. I'm good to go. I am good to go.
It's up to you, however you feel comfortable, when folks want to go up and take off the
Yeah, I'm gonna do that as long as you're okay sitting next to me.
Yeah, no, that's, listen, I read the MORPC rules. It said that's what
That's what it said. Exactly. Right. Yes. Yeah. Sure. No. Appreciate it. Oh.
with the live stream. Probably the important thing is if there's questions to repeat it for the audience.
Yep. That sounds great. Yep.
Are we have to load our presentation?
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be the kind of take care of that. Okay. So before I call you up.
Thanks.
Yeah, the pointer does work, right?
Seems to. Yeah.
The button should work, or you can use the arrows.
Okay.
So I'll load it up. Before I introduce you.
Yes. Hi.
Can you use your full 10 minutes?
He's already joked that he's gonna have to cut me off. We've been in enough meetings, haven't we? Hey, did you? I haven't seen. Unless I'm missing them, and I can only see them from here. I haven't seen any of the local guys.
No, I don't think they're here. They had said they were going to come.
Right.
Yeah, I don't see them. No, don't think so.
I was really looking forward to that. For this particular one. Again, it's going to be possible.
At himself in the mirror, and so she's like, "Well, here, if you get nervous, just picture everybody looking like Henry." So, if you guys want to take that with you,
That's ridiculous.
I'll save you the picture. picture, but you can have that mental picture.
That's great.
I'll take care of it. Yeah.
Okay, you
Yeah.
have to load it because this is just a holding cell.
Yep. I'll take care of it.
Okay, no
Yep.
worries.
Yep. Thank you. If I need your help, I will definitely let you know. So,
All right.
okay.
I've actually met you in person.
Is that it? Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, on the meetings, but that's it.
Well, nice to meet you in person. It seems like we know each other, but thank you for coming. Yeah.
I'm the director of
We are live streaming this session.
Mm-hmm.
So, panel discussion, make sure you talk to the mic so they're
How long have you been?
and it may, if somebody in the audience says, ask a question, you may want to.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
Service director and city engineer.
No, I'm not the city engineer, but engineering and service.
Yeah, it's especially on the civil side.
Okay, great. Yes, I know the Andrew. I just saw him.
Yes, he's finding David. So I'm not an engineer.
I just saw him recently. I would love to catch up with you after the presentation.
I can do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, it's like roads and bridges and sewers, and he's like, not that guy.
Yeah, no, not that one. Heavy math. Yeah, heavy math. Yeah.
Yeah, my father-in-law is a chemical mechanic manufacturing plant up in here, and they make molds for aircraft engine turbines. So we literally program robots that like keep
Yeah.
whatnot. So my son thinks that's way cool.
Obviously.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started here just in about 1 minute. Thank you all for being here, and good morning again. Let's start with the simple things. Let's make sure that you are in the right location. So if you haven't figured it out by now, this is going to be the Educate, Engage, and Redesign Innovative Community Recycling, Composting, and Waste Reduction Programs in Action. So hopefully you're in the right place. If you need credits, there is a sign-up sheet right here. I don't know much about that other than that it's right there, and there is a pen and a very nice little grid for you to sign. So please do that and take care of that. We are being live streamed, which is exciting, kind of. And so, if you have questions during the presentation, we're gonna repeat them into the microphone so that our listening audience can hear what the questions are. And lastly, we are going to let our presenters, like myself, take their masks off in accordance with the agreed upon rules of the day. So we'll be able to see and hear, hopefully. Let me introduce myself. I am Andrew Booker. I am with the Solid Waste Authority of Central Ohio, SWACO. If you participated in the morning session, you heard all about SWACO. I had a couple slides to explain who and what we are. I'm going to skip those because I think we covered it very well this morning. I do want to just touch on one simple thing, which is that we are really excited to be here, really excited to sponsor today's events. Many of the things that MORPC does and many of the values and the principles that they operate under are similar to our own. And so it's always great to partner with them. I want to point out two things in particular, which is two of our guiding principles, which is collaborating with public and private partners, the top one there, and engaging the community through education and outreach. You're going to hear three speakers today who I think have embodied those principles in the projects that they're going to talk about. Are three communities that closely collaborate with SWACO, and we are always happy to partner with. We have a strategic goal. One of the very, very most important things that we do at SWACO is we implement programs to reduce the reliance on landfill for disposal of the waste that we generate as residents, as businesses, and as communities. And in fact, we have a 75% diversion goal by 2032. That is quite an ambitious goal. You won't find another solid waste district or authority in Ohio quite like us in terms of setting a goal like that. We are working hard to get there, and we are doing it through our partnerships with our local communities, businesses, and residents. And so it really is my pleasure today to introduce 3 speakers who are going to talk a little bit about the programs that they've implemented in the last year. We're going to start with Grant Crawford from Gahanna. Gahanna is one of our great recycling communities as we learn and relearn over and over again. And they have implemented a program to provide some very innovative direct education to their residents. And you'll learn about that from Grant. Then Katie Reese is going to talk about Upper Arlington. Upper Arlington is a leader in many ways in waste reduction, and in particular with organics, and they have some very innovative programming that they've put in place and some education they've done. And then finally, last but not least, Whitehall. Zach Woodruff, who really, Whitehall has gone through a process of reimagining and redesigning their entire system of kind of waste collection at the curb. And trust me, it took a great deal of education and outreach with their residents, and you'll hear all about that. We have learned a lot together, I think, between us and these local communities, and I'm really excited just to get into it. We're going to try to hold our speakers to 10 minutes each. We'll take a few questions after each presenter, and then when we're all done with all those, we'll have them back here. We'll keep them here at the table, and we'll open it up to questions for all of them. So let me do the formal introduction here of Grant Crawford. Whoops, that is not what I intended to do. Don't save. You know, you think you know somebody until you read their formal biography, and then you learn a little bit more about them. And I think to myself, what have I done with my life? Maybe I should be working harder. This is one of those cases. Grant Crawford originally hails from Gahanna. He grew up in Gahanna and started working for the city in 2008 as a laborer for the streets and utility. Over the last 13 years, Grant has moved through several roles in the public service and engineering department. From utility operator to program administrator to deputy director of the department, Grant has had hands-on experience with many aspects of one of the largest departments within the city of Gahanna. He was promoted to Director of Public Service and Engineering at the beginning of 2020. Congratulations. In this role, he manages a department of almost 40 employees, roughly $10 million in capital maintenance projects, and $20 million in utility operations. Grant earned his Bachelor's of Business Administration in 2017 and a Master of Public Administration in 2018 from Franklin University. He also has an EPA Class II water distribution license and a Class II wastewater collection license. He's a member of MORPC's Green Pact, also known as Sustainable 2050. In Gahanna, Grant has led and championed many sustainability projects such as transitioning street light replacement to LED, citywide recycling cart deployment, and most recently the Feet on the Street cart tagging program. He recently became engaged, congratulations, and is the proud owner of Brew the Dog. Brew the Dog. With that, welcome, Grant Crawford.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Mary gave me the impossible task, and Andrew, of keeping this to 10 minutes, so I'm going to try and do my best. If I skip over some things, creates questions, there will be time at the end for some questions. So a little bit about Gahanna. Gahanna is a community of roughly 36,000 residents. Gahanna has a strong initiative for many years supporting sustainability. We're, of course, a member of Sustainable 2050. We're a silver member. We are Tree City USA, and we have recently created a sustainability committee, and we are looking forward to starting a food waste program next year. Fingers crossed we get that grant. So sustainability has been a priority for the city, but it's also a priority for our residents. And that is one of the main reasons that SWACO and the EPA looked to Gahanna to initiate the Feet on the Street cart tagging program. When this came out, this was around the start of COVID, and we thought, what better time to do a cart tagging program when residents are sitting at home, adding more waste, putting more things in recycling. So our focus was on trying to educate them on what is right, was good, high-quality recycling. So studies have shown that there is confusion about recycling. Education and outreach is one of the most important aspects to updating residents on what is high-quality recycling. And more importantly, it's direct and detailed feedback, which was done through this program. The recycling carts were inspected at the households at the street. And because of that, they were able to provide very direct feedback. I'm going to play a little video for you that gives you a little bit more background on the program here.
We are excited to announce that in spring, Gahanna will be participating in a recycling education and awareness program funded by the Ohio EPA, the Recycling Partnership, SWACO, and the Ohio State University. Along with surveys, mailings, and media messages, recycling workers will be in our community looking in recycling carts and letting residents know if something doesn't belong. The key to success is to get the word out on what belongs in our recycling carts and to make an impact on our community by having more high-quality recycling. Recycling supports 5,000 jobs in Central Ohio and represents 370 businesses. It starts here at home. When you recycle, you help support 10 times more jobs in landfilling.
So I'd like to think that, I'm high quality recycling. Some people may say I'm a contaminant. I don't know. So the four key parts of this were mailers and education, the actual resident cart tagging, pre and post surveys, and then a pre, mid, and post waste sort, where they took the recycling truck, dumped it out on the ground, and sorted through. And I'll talk more about that as we go on. So there was three approaches to the cart tagging. I only have time to talk about one, which is the top approach, and that's the 3 consecutive tagging events. So to make this possible, Gahanna, along with many other communities around Central Ohio, deployed recycling carts roughly 2 years ago. Because of that, we were able to actually inspect these carts versus having those little tiny totes laying around the street, blowing down the street. And as part of that, it included public education and outreach. I don't have much time to go through the different pieces of outreach, but the point I want to make is these are templates, and these can be updated to your community if you are looking to do a cart tagging program or just providing general education to your residents. Another key aspect of this was to bring in some local ambassadors to support the event. We had Obie Stillwell, who's a former Buckeye and a local real estate agent, and then an Officer Moffitt. When you have people walking around the street, looking in your recycling carts, residents might be concerned. Even though they have bright yellow shirts and name tags saying what they're doing, they're still concerned because someone is rummaging through the recycling. So it's important to have the police department behind this, saying, we support you, we support this, we support recycling. So the cart tagging itself, auditors walked the recycling routes, making visual inspections, visual audits of the recycling carts. They audited 6 different contaminants, and then when they found one of these contaminants, they would place a tag on the cart, and then the cart would not be collected for recycling that week, which provided residents the opportunity to correct what was the contaminant and take it out. So how they did this was they had this high-tech mobile app on their phone where they documented the contaminants, and then they took a picture of it, and it was immediately uploaded. So when residents didn't know what was going on, the tag didn't quite make sense to them, and they called us, we could say, hey, this is what happened, and here's a picture of it. And we could walk them through that, remove that bag recycling, remove that trash. So general results of this, Gahanna's awesome. We have a 75% set out rate and a 9% tagging rate. That means that our residents definitely love to recycle, and they try and do a good job, but there's still some room for improvement. So through this, test group 1, they had a tagging rate of 10% at the beginning. Through this, by the end of it, they had a 6.9% tagging rate. So this direct and detailed feedback to these residents truly help them understand what is high quality recycling. Now you're probably asking, all right, what did we do wrong? Bags, bags, bags. We like bags. We like bagging our recyclables. We like placing bags in our recycling. Over 60% of it was related to bags. So we directed our feedback at bags to let them know that this is not okay. Bagged recycling is not okay. Your Kroger bags are not okay. Throw it away. It's trash. When it's in your recycling and it goes to a recycling facility, they end up just throwing the entire bag away on all the recyclables or end up getting tangled in the process. So they just throw it all away, and all the recycling that they worked so hard to put in their bag is now not recyclable. So a few takeaways of this. Again, Gehenna's awesome. We have high set-out rates. We have very clean carts. But our issue is bags. And through this direct communication, we saw a reduction over these 3 tagging events. As I mentioned earlier, there was the waste composition study, which dumped out the recycling truck, and workers sorted through it, not a job I'd want to do, put it in 5-gallon bins, put it in trash cans, and weighed it to determine how much is clean and how much is contaminated. As you see here in this blurry picture, at the very first tagging event, it was 81% clean with 18% contaminated. By the end of this, it was up to 87% clean with a 12% contamination. This, again, is proof that it was successful, and it was successful for the entire route, because that truck was done for the entire route, but our tagging, of course, could not be done for that entire route. So as part of this, there were surveys. If you were one of the communities that deployed recycling carts a few years ago, you probably remember it was the end of the world. You know, people could no longer park their cars in the garage. How dare you give us this giant, giant recycling bin that we can never use? 2 years later, 92% of people actually like them. And that was honestly surprising to me, because I got a lot of those calls where people were yelling at me that I cannot use this thing. People have learned to use it. They have learned to recycle. They have learned to dump all their Amazon boxes in there from the pandemic and having all these deliveries. So the other question was, what, if any, barriers do you have to recycling? Number one answer, it's too confusing. You know, we send out all these mailers, all these postcards. For Gehenna, that meant we need to direct it. We had to direct it to bagged recyclables and bags. The other question you're probably asking is, were they mad? Yeah, they were a little mad. You know, the number one complaint was tied. It was that they were frustrated that their cart was not collected. That created a reaction in our residents to think about it. They had to go to the cart. They had to remove this item. Yes, they were upset, but it created that change in them because they physically had to go and remove it. It wasn't, there's a tag, the cart's empty, I'm just going to throw it away and not do anything. The other top one was they appreciated getting information about proper recycling. Another survey question was, did you talk to anybody about receiving a tag? Well, of course they did. They complained to their husband, their wife, their kids, and they said, don't you dare put this in again because it's not going to be collected next week. But it was also positive because, you know, they shared what is high quality recycling. I'm sure they also talked to their friends, family, neighbors, and shared that plastic bags are bad. And so hopefully that created a change in their thinking in their family as well as their friend zone and their circle. Overall, we asked them, did the notice help you make it more likely to recycle better? 64% said yes, it did, and that is amazing. The majority of people that received a tag and the recycling did not get collected thought that this helped them recycle, and they're appreciative of it. So I'm a little bit over 10 minutes, but in summary, the program was incredibly successful, as you've seen here with these metrics. We have confirmed that, you know, bagged recycling is a top contaminant for Gehenna, and it may be for your community and other communities as well. The surveys confirm that people are confused about what is recyclable, and we need to do better at directing that feedback to them as far as what is recyclable. And then, of course, education and outreach is important. That is what improved our recycling throughout this whole process. Thank you.
Let's take maybe 2 questions for Grant. Anybody have a question?
So, myself, I put my
one box that I don't break down and I put my recyclables in there and I leave it open and let it go every day. And I do that because if I don't do that, my cans and bottles end up on the street a lot of times. So that's why I try to contain my containers. How do we fix that problem?
So it sounds like you have a tote, a recycling tote versus a
Big thing.
and the bottles still end up in the street?
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, I don't know how you correct that. Andrew, do you have any suggestions?
How is, when they're collecting it, that happens?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
It sounds like it might be a hauler concern.
Might be a hollow issue.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we, some communities, and we'll hear a lot about this, I think, from Zach, have kind of regular meetings with their collection hauler to kind of address issues like this, and so this is one where I think maybe the community and the hauler need to be talking.
Yeah.
One more?
I think so.
I was curious, is there any plan to do a follow-up in terms of taking a look at the same idea for trash and see what could be recycled in a diversion tactic as opposed to just what they're currently recycling?
That's a very good question.
Repeat the question for the people.
Okay. The question was, is there a plan to do a follow-up and potentially look through the actual trash cart itself to see if you can help direct people to recycle things that are generally being thrown in the trash? Currently, we don't have any plans to do this, but it does seem like a very good program to look into and potentially roll out.
Let's hold questions. I hope you have more, but let's hold questions so we can get through these other presentations. Thank you again, Grant. That was great.
All right, off to a good start. Let me get the next one keyed up here. I do I was remiss, I wanted to introduce two other people real quick. You heard reference to Ohio EPA. Ohio EPA is a great partner of SWACO and our local communities. They do provide grants, and they provided a grant for this project. April Stevens is here from Ohio EPA. If you have any questions for Ohio EPA, she's there. And then the other person who is really much more important than I am in terms of what you're seeing today is Mary Long right here. If you could just stand up, please, Mary, with SWACO. She is our communities program administrator. She's worked very closely with everybody you see on the stage here and all of the projects that you're seeing. She helped partner and implement, so she is a great resource for any communities that are interested. All right, and with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Katie Reese. Katie Reese is the Performance Analyst for the Public Service Department at the City of Upper Arlington. In this position, she oversees the city's solid waste services contract and is responsible for the city's ongoing waste diversion programs. In this effort, Katie created the city's food waste compost drop-off program in 2019, which has diverted over 250,000 pounds of food waste from the landfill. She's been instrumental in securing grant dollars for various sustainability efforts, including a $300,000 grant for the installation of electric vehicle charging stations at city buildings. Prior to joining the City of Upper Arlington, she held various roles at both Franklin County Common Police Court and the Franklin County Department of Job and Family Services. She has an undergraduate degree from the University of Dayton, a master's degree from Ohio Dominican University, and is a certified Six Sigma black belt, which intimidates me. Thank you for being here, Katie Reese.
All right, good morning. Thanks for being here. Oh, I can take this off, can I? All right, like Andrew said, I'm Katie. I'm with the City of Upper Arlington, and I'm here this morning just to talk to you about our food waste diversion efforts and kind of the educational campaign that surrounded that. So just a little bit of history. We started so in 2015, 2016-ish, we knew that we were moving towards a new solid waste contract. So our old contract was getting ready to expire, and we knew that there was going to be big changes. We were going to move to a cart-based system. And like Grant said, it's very overwhelming for people, so we did a lot of outreach. And one of the things that we learned from people when we were talking, we were saying, what's important to you? What do you want to see in your solid waste services? A lot of people told us that they had an interest in food waste diversion, so we knew that was something that we were going to look at in the future. So once we moved into our new system and we got people comfortable with the carts and moving from the trash stickers to just regular trash pickup, we were able to start our food waste program in 2019. So what we did with kind of just, I was just kind of making it up as I went along, right? So we said, okay, we'll just open the program to everybody. There won't be a need to sign up. We'll just have the carts outside. You can drop your stuff off whenever you want. Our provider is Go Zero Services. So it was a food waste only. They take the materials to a industrial compost facility, so that was able to include meats and dairies, so a little bit more than what you can do in your backyard. And like I said, we're going to have the drop-off locations open 24 hours a day at some of our city buildings and parks. So for our initial promotion of the program, what we did was I just bought a big pallet of buckets, right? So 5-gallon buckets with lids. And we said, okay, the first 100 people to call and say that you are interested in a bucket, let me know, you'll have one. Well, there was a lot more people interested than I anticipated, right? So we got rid of the buckets like very, very quickly. And then I'm just telling people, okay, well, just bring your stuff. You don't have to have a bucket. So we started with our 2 drop-off locations. We had 4 containers total, 65-gallon, just your regular toter that you would have at home for your trash or your recycling. We were on a bi-weekly collection. And we started with the drop-off locations at our 2 city buildings, which are the Tremont Road, which is the municipal building, which is kind of the main centrally located, and then our Roberts Road facility, which is where we keep, all of our equipment. It's not in Upper Arlington, but it's right across the river, so it's still very, very close. But that location wasn't very popular, so it was like me and one other guy who were using it. So, but lesson learned, right? So as the program started to grow, we moved the Roberts Road location to one of our parks that's more north, kind of east corner of the city. That grew eventually to have 4 carts there, and then we kept the location, the central location at the municipal building was very, very popular. That grew eventually to about 7 carts. So from May to November, we were up to 11 carts at a biweekly collection, and we were at capacity for every collection. So at some point, we just kind of had to back off of our promotion of the program while we waited for expansion of the program. So just a little idea here of kind of what I'm talking about for the location. So this is at the Sunny 95 Park, the northeast location. You can see the bottom kind of corner there. We had the dumpster location, and then there was just like a empty space. It wasn't a parking spot, and I don't remember what they kept there, but I took it, and we built a little enclosure around it, right? So it kept the cans inside, kept them from being visible to the neighbors, and then it was just kind of right there next to the dumpster enclosure, conveniently located there. And then at the municipal building, same kind of idea. We just set them up next to, that's our old dumpster location. It's been painted and the signs are changed now, so it's a lot prettier now. But that's kind of how we had it set up initially. Then, as we were growing, we knew we wanted to grow the program, so we applied for the Community Waste Reduction Grant through SWACO, and we were awarded that grant, so that allowed us to build an enclosure around the cans that were outside at the municipal building. We also added another location at another park, at Fancyburg Park, and we got signage for all of our locations that detailed, what you can put in, what you can't put in, plastic bags. Everybody puts plastic bags. And then, so from there, we were able to grow the program even more, and eventually in February of this past year, we increased it to a weekly collection, keeping the 17 total carts that we had. So again, just some pictures. So this is all of our different locations. So Fancyburg Park, the municipal building, the one that we kind of put some fences around the dumpster enclosure, and then there at Fancyburg, and then some examples of our signage. So once we had kind of established like a nice base with our program earlier this year, it was perfect timing because it was around the same time that SWACO was coming out with their Save More Than Food campaign, which is their educational campaign for Franklin County residents, businesses, schools, everybody. It's all these resources that are available on how to reduce your food waste. So whether that is through prevention, through planning, or through, it's kind of that idea of like the old recycling, right? Reduce, reuse, recycle. So if you see if you can use less, and then maybe you can repurpose it. And then in the end, if you still have done all those things and you still have it, then how do you recycle it? So same kind of idea, but just around food waste. So we partnered with SWACO and some researchers at Ohio State. So Dr. Brian Rowe, if you guys are familiar with Brian, we were going to do a study to see the effectiveness of the Save More Than Food campaign. So we started in February. The researchers did kind of an initial survey that went out to everybody, to all the residents. And then after the survey, so we did the survey in February, and then we did a waste audit, a curbside waste audit in March. Then from March and June kind of time frame, we did really targeted outreach, and I'll get into more specifics on that. So we used some treatment areas and then control areas, and then followed up after that with another survey and another curbside waste audit. So our collection, the city is broken down into 4 collection zones for trash. So we just broke down, that's how we kind of made our control and treatment groups. So each day was its own kind of little group. So we had two of the areas were control groups. One of the areas was group A and the other one was group B. I don't remember which one was which because it was just based on the numbers. It wasn't based on anything in particular. So the control group, everybody received, so we did the waste audit and the survey. So obviously everybody received that. And then there was just the general Save More Than Food campaign materials that were being distributed either through us, through our social media, through SWACO, sending it out. So obviously the control group, everybody received all of that. And then I'll get into more specifics about the rest of this. So obviously everybody received the mailers, social media, website updates. We had some webinars that we hosted on, on prevention and planning and reducing food waste at home, tips and tricks you can do in the kitchen, that sort of thing. So treatment group A, which was one of the sections of town, they were more focused on prevention and planning techniques, right? So they got mailers at home about, food storage and preparations, proper ways to keep certain foods so that they'll last longer, tricks on how to making plans before you go to the grocery store, that sort of thing. And then we also had, they were offered the blue apple. So I don't know if you have one of these. They're actually really cool. They're just little things that you can put in your refrigerator, and you put it in your veggie drawer, and it just keeps the stuff from going bad faster, I guess. They actually work really well. So we had those were a giveaway. We had a ton of people that signed up for those. We dropped them off. And then treatment group B received all of the before mentioned things, as well as a focus on composting. So they had the option to receive a free earth machine, which is the big backyard composter, and a roll of BPI certified compostable liners. So with all of that, right, so we did the initial survey and then the follow-up survey and then the follow-up audit. So with all of that, we found, and this is, I won't get into too much of the results of the study because it's still very earlier and I was not on like the research side. So just very briefly, we did find initial results are showing that there was a decrease from spring to summer on both what was reported through the surveys and then both what was actually found when we did the audits. So, which was really cool. That means it's working, right? And then the other thing was in the survey, we just asked people, did you think that this campaign was effective at creating awareness? And over half of the people said it was effective in some way. And I just can't not go to a meeting. I can't go to a meeting and not talk about pumpkins. So this was a big deal. So just because of like a fun, lighthearted part of food waste, one thing I did not anticipate, one of the many things I did not anticipate when we created this program was pumpkins. So you can see in this picture here on the left, the bins are overwhelmed, they're overflowing, you can't close them. It's because there's pumpkins in them, so they're big, they take up a bunch of space. And then you can see the other one, this is after I've reached my arms down into the goo and everything, and I pulled all the pumpkins out, and now the bins you can close them, right? So that was a big problem in 2019 when we first started the program. I did not anticipate that. So in 2020, we said, okay, we're gonna do a pumpkin collection. I got some of those bins from the grocery store, where you pick up the pumpkins. I said, give me a couple of those. We'll just have people put them in there. Those pictures are from like an hour of collection. It was so overwhelming. We collected so many pumpkins. Every day we were trying to think of, okay, what's a different way? What truck can we put out there that people can throw these things in that's not too big, but it was a mess. So we collected over 65,000 pounds of pumpkins throughout the month of November. And my guys did not know that that's what they signed up for. I'm like, can you bring a loader over or something? It was just terrible. So anyway, just kind of finishing up, just showing kind of overall what the amount of food waste that we've collected from our program. So obviously 2019, not a full year of collection, and we had scaled back promotion big time. 2020 obviously still grew, and you throw some pumpkins in there, and then that was really big. So obviously we haven't had our pumpkin collection this year, but we're ready for it. So we are already at a little over 135 tons of food waste collected since the start of the program. And then just this one on the side, it's kind of hard to see, but just visually you can see that that's just per month. The amount of food waste that's been collected since the start. So the orange, I think that was when we just had the between 4 and 7 containers. And then the green was when we just had the 2 locations, we were up to 11. And then the blue was with all 3 locations, 17 containers, and weekly versus biweekly collection. So that's all I've got on food waste. Thanks. I didn't track my time, so I don't know how I did, but. You did great. Thanks.
You said you're ready for pumpkins this year. What's your plan?
So I got 20-yard roll-offs. So not the biggest one. The question was, how are we ready for pumpkins? And so we have 20-yard roll-offs that are coming. It's at the same location, so at Fancyburg Park. So they're big enough that it will take a lot, I think, hopefully, to fill them, but they're not too big that you can't throw them in. So they're the kind of lower height ones, if that makes any sense. Yeah. And then we have our hauler is going to haul them to the facility for us, because last year we did that too. So we hauled them to the facility. It was a mess. So, yeah.
We're considering doing something similar in New Albany. We've been talking a little bit with Joe Zero. I guess one question we have is, would it be worth considering having curbside pickup for food waste, separate from recycling and trash, maybe like on the same day that you did yard waste, also do food waste? I just was curious if you guys had looked into that at all, or were you going with the drop-off food waste going again?
Yeah, so the question is considering a curbside option for food waste rather than the drop-off. And the answer is yes, always considering it, because I think obviously it's the more convenient option for people. I think you could really get a lot more people involved if they don't actually have to take it somewhere. The one thing that we kind of are struggling with, and I think kind of region-wide right now, is just the infrastructure to get that done. So there's not a lot of haulers out there right now who dabble in food waste, much less who are prepared to pick up curbside from 13,500 households. So it is something we are exploring, and we're going to try to pilot soon. But what that will look like on a larger scale, I'm not sure. Yeah, thank you.
And I do, just as a follow-up to that last question, want to mention that SWACO is going through a RFQ process right now, request for qualifications, to address this lack of capacity for food waste composting. And so we are very hopeful, and really our intention is that in a few years we will have the capacity available that will allow for the expansion of things like that. So that's a great, pertinent question. I also just want to point out that, not only do we have great communities in terms of showing leadership on these programs, but I think you've heard it twice here. These are communities that are also piloting things. We're kind of working very closely with them to try different approaches. We're really kind of cutting new ground with the leadership of these communities so that we can share those learnings with other communities in Central Ohio. So the real hard work that they're doing here isn't just to benefit themselves, and it's great to have these communities that are willing to kind of take the leadership and be the kind of trailblazers. And then we take those learnings, and as we now have 8 communities that have food waste drop-offs kind of following the lead of Upper Arlington. So we're doing well on time, Zach. Good. As you will soon learn, Zach is very, very good at telling a story, and he has a good story to tell. So let me get this up here. So as I mentioned before, we kind of have a Gahanna focused on curbside recycling. We have Upper Arlington focused on composting, and then we have Whitehall, who really rethought the whole system that they were doing in terms of their sanitation services. And so it's been quite a learning experience for all of us, I think, as we've gone through that. So it is my pleasure to introduce Zach Woodruff, who currently serves as the City of Whitehall City Administrator. Previously in the role of Director of Development and Public Service, he focused his efforts, excuse me, he focused his efforts on job growth and expansion, negotiating development agreements leading to more than $115 million in new public and private investment, adding over 2,300 new jobs and over $228 million in new taxable income since 2012. He's taken the lead on encouraging businesses such as Heartland Bank, the Balserstrom Company, and Buckeye Ranch to build new corporate headquarters in Whitehall, further bolstering the community tax base at the same time in his role as Director of Public Service. He's designed and implemented long-range capital plans and recently spurred an initiative to transition the community from unlimited cart contents only garbage to recycling collection. You're going to learn all about that in a minute. Zach holds a Bachelor in Arts from the Ohio State University and has served on the Board of Directors of Mid-Ohio Development Exchange, Franklin County Transportation Improvement District, and Ground Level Solutions, Inc. He was named to the Columbus First 2018 class of 40 under 40 and was a member of the Columbus CEO 2019 Future 50. Again, what have I done with my life? Zach was born and raised in Whitehall and currently resides in Pickerington with his wife and 3 children. Please welcome Zach Woodruff.
Thanks, Andrew. I first just want to start by saying how honored I am to serve on this panel with these 2 incredible people. I know I learned a lot from their presentations. I hope to be Grant when I grow up. That was a really great presentation. So as Andrew mentioned, we were in the city of Whitehall, really kind of reimagined and redeveloped our how we dispose of trash and do recycling in the community. So for years, we had an unlimited throw out as much as you want, really however you want at the curb. Certainly our leadership understood that we could and could do better and could be better. So Whitehall at a glance, you can kind of see how many households we have. Our trash, solid waste, recycling, yard waste is all collected on the same day, and we were fortunate to be able to lock in 2 5-year contracts for our residents through our joint bids with SWACO, through SWACO, and that resulted in our residents having a price of $13.75 billed monthly, but per month, but billed quarterly for those 10 years. So they did not see an increase in their trash bill for 10 years. And when we were talking in 2019 for the bid in 2020, I think all of our leadership understood that our residents were certainly going to see an increase in their bill, if for nothing else, than they hadn't seen one in 10 years. So with our unlimited service, and we have 2 outstanding pictures to show you. I'm sorry, I don't have a video of me jumping out of a trash can. But there was no incentive to recycle. It certainly, trash day in Whitehall always looked awful. And, you know, although Franklin County Public Health has a requirement that your trash be in a trash can with a lid, I don't know of any community that goes around enforcing that necessarily. Seems like the best way to get yelled at by a service director. So this is a lot of what you would see out on trash day, just random bags, random things, and it certainly was not sustainable. So part of our conversation with our leadership in 2019 and into 2020 was this idea of, if we're entering into a new contract, there is the potential to create and really change the dynamic of how we dispose of trash and how we handle recycling. And so what we ultimately switched to was, and what we talked about was creating this volume-based system. So it is really pay as you throw, but maybe not as difficult, maybe isn't the right word, onerous on residents for stickers, where they have to keep going to City Hall and getting stickers and tagging bags. And we felt like this was also a way that, you know, residents could take ownership over their trash bills, and we'll talk about that in a minute, because it really gives them an incentive to recycle more, to compost more, so that they have less solid waste. So as we were evaluating to go to and talking to our city council about whether to stay with this unlimited or to go to this volume-based, we did a number of things, and I can't thank our team who really was the driver on this. But what we did was, you know, first we asked people on social media to sign up to be part of a pilot program, and we used our city council and some of our other elected leadership to do a trial run at their home for 30 days just to see how easy it was to get your trash to fit into a 95, 96 gallon trash can with a 64 gallon recycling bin. We heard a lot of the same things that Grant heard, which is, oh my God, how am I going to fit it in my garage? It's amazing how much bigger their garages got after getting the trash cans. And so we also did a community survey asking people about the level of service they were experiencing, you know, what were their thoughts on carts. And so after those 2 programs and providing that feedback to our city council, ultimately the mayor and city council decided to go the route of this volume-based trash. And so the contract that we signed, the new 5-year contract, was for that volume base. So all of your trash has to be in the 95, or we'll get to different sizes in a minute, had to be in your city-provided trash can. So again, we talked about volume-based. As you can see, the cost in the bid for the unlimited, throw out however much you want in any way, back to the bad pictures, was going to be $19.20. We were able to, through the bid and through the partnership with SWACO, you can see that based on the size of trash container that you selected, that you could actually see a reduction in your monthly bill. And so again, really encouraging people to, you know, right size it to their family, but also encouraging them to also utilize the 64 gallon recycling container that they would also be given. So we did a tremendous amount of public outreach. I asked our team yesterday, I think we had something to the effect of, from July through the end of the year, 64 just social media messages. I can't even, Mary would probably be able to tell me how many direct mail pieces we did. It was a lot. And so, we did a lot of outreach. You can kind of see our timeline. But so we had residents select which size of can that they would want, of cart that they would want. If they didn't go in and select, the default was the largest, was the 96. And so, you can kind of see the timeline that we worked with. We delivered 11,000 carts in a week, which was a lot. But we saw some pretty dramatic changes once we started changing people over. One thing I will mention is that we had a 3-month implementation period. So the new contract began January 1. We obviously educated and communicated with residents that come January 1, it has to be in the city-issued cart. And then we gave them 3 months where we would send them weekly reminders if they had excess outside of the can. The hauler, to local waste credit, they did a fantastic job of working with us. So they would also leave oops stickers. Hey, we picked up your trash, but just remember April 1, that no longer happens. And you can see the dramatic changes that we've seen in the averages. Our recycling tonnage has almost doubled. I mean, it's been really incredible to see the waste diversion and the recycling rate. So, Whitehall has 10,000 housing units, plus or minus. Half of those are single-family homes. Half of those are multifamily units. And so those 18-gallon totes that, we've all been given from the hauler at some point got used for moving boxes or storage containers and were no longer being used for recycling. So a significant amount of our residents didn't own one and, they aren't going to bother to come to City Hall to pick up another free one. So you can see where we've really increased that recycling rate. I mentioned that we talked about local waste. Local Waste has really been a great partner on this. It's not to say that we didn't have passionate, difficult conversations with them from the time we selected the contract through implementation, but one of the things that they were really able to do for us that helped us educate people were these weekly meetings that we were having to go over, real data on what households had excess material that they didn't pick up so that we could send follow-up information to them. I asked our team, I think we sent 1,200 letters the month of April that all were from me saying, hey, please stop doing that. And so it was great to get responses on those. You can see a copy of one of my nice letters like, hey, stop doing that. But we continued to send this information. So as part of our contract too, residents previously could throw out as much as they want. So, someone bought furniture for every room in their house. It could all go out to the curb. Now the contract limited it to one bulk item a week. If you needed additional to that, you could call local waste and make other arrangements, but it was one bulk item. So the education of throw out your entire house to just in your bin and just in your recycling in one bulk item really took a Herculean effort on our team to make sure that residents not only understood that, but were aware of it. And I can't tell you, again, I mentioned the social media posts and all of the postcards and all of the letters and whatnot, and we still have people even today that were like, I had no idea that the city changed to a different way of doing it, which is weird. You can continue to see some of the outreach that we continue to do. So, whether it's through city publications or direct mail pieces, with SWACO and the Recycling Partnership and through the hauler, we are, able to put in different informational pieces in our haulers' bills. They do the billing for us. So twice a year, we're able to put in additional information about this is how the program works. This is what you should and should not be recycling. We had a recycling drop-off event, which was, again, very successful. And part of this was, as I mentioned, we had that 3-month implementation period. So April 1 was the first, time that people couldn't just throw out whatever they want and get it picked up. So we held a recycling event, 1 month into the new program. It was very successful. People kind of getting ahead of, hey, how do I make sure I'm doing this right? Some takeaways, because I'm trying to keep good on time, because I'm at 12 minutes. Sorry about that. We would recommend perhaps a shorter implementation period. I don't know that we think that if it was 3 months or 1 month that the results would have been that much different, because we know that from people calling and telling us so, that whether it was 1 month or 3 months, they would have done the same thing. They would have just kept throwing it out until they were forced to not be able to do that anymore. Increase office staff. This is a must. So we were tracking this. We were taking about 150 calls a week just in trash-related service requests, whether it was, I need an additional 95-gallon, or why didn't you pick up my trash, or my lid was up 12 inches, why didn't they take it? All of those things. We would also maybe stay away from calling it unlimited days. That's a request from our hauler partners that don't like that term. That was not necessarily a hill I would die on, just as long as the trash was still going in the carts. Billing yourself is something that if you have the infrastructure to do, if you already do billing, whether it's through water or whatnot, if you have the ability to do the billing yourself, we would recommend that. So the city adds 75 cents a month to the bill to handle the maintenance of the carts and the tracking and the staff time invested. And so if you have, it's a difficult process to get that remittance from the hauler. You know, if someone has a $50 bill, but they only pay 40, you know, what's the percentage split and how do you get paid back? It is a bit of a headache that I think we've gone to a good place, Mary, with the hauler. But it is much more difficult. I would absolutely encourage you to invest. This is a screenshot of a tracking system we have that's called Vision. It's an inventory management software. I don't know how you would possibly hope to do this program without one. Originally we thought, we'll do it in Excel, and that wasn't going to work. You can see here where we have the initial, when people initially signed up through October. Generally speaking, when people went and made their decisions, it sounds like, from our data that was the right decision for them. Hasn't been a whole lot of movement, but you can see on a monthly basis just what people are saving. And so, over the course of a year, we're going to save our residents about $90,000. So we're really excited about that. I won't get into the cost of maintenance. Just, there's a lot of work involved. So again, just the benefits, and this is the last slide I have because now I'm at 15 minutes. Good God. I tried to go as fast as I could, Andrew. Our recycling participation went up significantly. The amount of tonnage went up significantly. Trash day looks so much better than it used to with all of the carts. We've had the same thing, people saying, oh my gosh, they put the cart is in the street. Where can I park? How am I going to drive by? They've managed to do it. It's also contained the cost. And, as we think about in the future, where conversations with haulers about going to maybe a more automated system, this also sets up our residents to be able to realize any savings that would come from that automation. And it really has been really beneficial, although there were certainly long days and long conversations to make it successful in where we are today. So that's the last slide I have. And mine just goes black, apparently. Thank you.
Any questions for Zach?
I have a question.
Yes.
So, I live here 3 or 4 nights a week, and in a search for an apartment, I would drive into just the parking lot and judge how the maintenance or how the property manager handles the building by the way the dumpster looks.
Yes.
So residential living does this. What do you do in your apartment complexes?
So there's 2 different ways that trash is handled in Whitehall at our multifamily. There are a couple multifamily that are large communities of duplex and 4 units. Those actually have this cart system. And we've worked with those large management companies they pre-bought, I'll call it 100 extra that we keep at our service garage that are designated for them. So when they have a resident that needs one, we can get them a second one. The other one is, we have, large, then it's just like any other apartment complex where they have, large roll-offs or, the dumpsters, and we have a code enforcement department that works pretty regularly with them. I'll tell you, the effort that we've been able to apply to those rental communities has been able to be increased because we're not spending as much time, because trash isn't just everywhere along the streets in Whitehall in our residential areas. So we have been able to hold management company landlords more accountable on how they're maintaining their trash service at those places. The question was, how are we, sorry for people online, I just blew right by it, was how are we handling trash at some of our apartment complexes? You had a question. Yes. Yeah, so the question was there an opportunity for the gallon size of the toters to be changed? And so people could sign up at the beginning in November, December for their cart size. If you selected a 95 and, in the first quarter, you just decided, hey, this is too big for me, yes, we would allow people to make that change. What we did implement as a general policy, not necessarily a rule, is we would allow people to change it once. And we'll do that the first quarter of every year, just so that we aren't constantly having our street department go back out and change can after can after can. And so that's been part of the process. But as you can see from those numbers I placed earlier, really kind of once people locked in what size works well for them, in January 1, we didn't really see any movement throughout the year. We have a bigger issue with my can went missing, or I need a second one. And those are some of the people who we tried every, what is it, honey better than a stick, right? We tried every pot of honey we could find, and there are just people who eventually we had to say, we're going to have to come up with a solution, and they bought a second cart. So I think we keep going with questions? All right. That's where the stick comes in. So the question was, what's the accountability measure put in for people who keep putting trash outside? So after we got out of the implementation period, your trash can would get collected, but they would leave the other bag, the second bulk item. As resident, you're also paying for 96 gallons of trash removal, right? So, I'm not saying that the lid has to be completely closed, but if it's bag on top of bag on top of bag and you're really getting 120, the hauler didn't take that either. And so we spent 2 months working with our residents. So trash day in Whitehall's on Wednesday. Code enforcement and our street superintendent drove through the city on Thursday. We obviously got the list from local waste on people who had excess material, usually Wednesday night, right, Mary? Wednesday night, Thursday. We knew which houses to go to. We would go there if there was still trash down at the curb. We would give them a notice that said, hey, this needs to be at minimum moved back to your house. Can't stay at the curb, has to be gone by Friday at noon. If they continued to do it, and we have out of 5,300 households that get serviced on a weekly basis, we're talking about 22, 25 houses, so it's not a large percentage to begin with. There are people who we've had to bring to court because they continue to either not use the appropriate can or keep putting out excess material. But what I'll tell you is that, we're at a 98% compliance rate. As I told our leadership, because week 1 we were at 92%, and we had city council people who called and wanted to just cancel the whole thing and go back to unlimited because they had gotten phone calls. And I said, listen, if I had told you in the middle of a pandemic that we'd be above a 90% compliance rate in going from throw out as however much you want to cart contents, you would have said, well, that sounds great. We went from 92% to 96% to 97%, and now we're at 98%. You, Grant, will back this up. 98% compliance in anything is a great day. Well, thank you. Trust me, it's not me. I just got, There's lots of people on our team that have made it successful, and so I do want to give credit to our mayor and our city council, really for having the courage to move to it's not the way we've always done it, and the comments we got, we're never going to be able to comply. Our city council and the mayor having the backbone to be able to stand up and say, no, we're going to see this through, and we're going to give it more than 3 days was really helpful for us. So.
Great success story. I would like to, we're at time. I know there are more questions. Grant, Katie, and Zach will be around. I would encourage you to come chat them up and ask your question directly. Let's give one more round of applause. All right, thank you all.
My bad. My bad.
You're good.
That was great.
Thank you.
Hi, yeah. Hi, nice to meet you.
I know, but he wanted me to end early so that other people could.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, so, so Swaco helped us secure a bid. And then, by such a, this is how many size of the we obviously bought. And then online system, every can has an archive.
Initial, the way we did the kind of initial campaign, we had those control groups, so we did have the one where we focused on the prevention and planning techniques. So we haven't solidified the survey yet, so I think once we get that all wrapped up, we'll be able to take all of the materials that we created and all the stuff that we use, and then really start using that and pushing that to everybody. So we haven't done that yet, but it is in our kind of like overall plan, to use all of that material and make sure it's going out to everybody instead of just like that one little control group that we have. Yeah. And the Save More Than Food campaign, the SaveMoreThanFood.org, I think is what it is.
.com/org.
Yeah, I think it's org, but you can get to it through Swaco's website too. They have tons and tons of material that's on there. And we just took some of it and it's slapped our logo on it, and yeah, so it's been instrumental in helping us to answer your question. We haven't yet, but we plan to.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
I've heard that kind of like the number one impact outside.
Yeah, if you look at like what it does once it gets into the landfill and everything, it's so much easier just to put it over here and turn it into like nutrient-rich